see Verena joining up. Okay, I think the recording is also on. And let's see. Verena. Yes. And Verena is with us. Greetings, Verena. Greetings, sir. Well, I would like to greet you all. Namaste to you and to your wonderful souls who decided to play in this wonderful and interesting physical world filled with adventures, illusions, beauty, and sometimes all the rest what comes along with a good adventure. It's really hard to enjoy something beautiful when you don't have something complicated and hard, thanks to which you can truly appreciate the dynamics of what we receive. Oh, I see Joe joined us. Welcome, brother. And today will be a very interesting topic connected with ancestors. And it's a very wide and a very interesting topic because all of us who are sitting here right now in our physical form, we are truly a reflection of two things. One thing, it's our past soul experience that what we gathered in our past lives. And the second, it's all of the biological DNA and the experience which our ancestors have gathered in the past. So these two elements fundamentally create who we are, what are our talents, what are our possibilities, in many cases, even what is our health and our natural, let's say, health patterns, and includingly what is our mindset, what are the thoughts that we have inside, what is the life view that we have inside of us. And so once we start to work upon ourselves, it becomes a very interesting, I would say, it becomes a very interesting picture that we start to see how everything is very interconnected with our soul and our family. So how does it work? And why it is so strongly interconnected? And why we have to literally always pay attention on our family and our family roots and ancestors to understand better who we are today. What are our problems? What are the roots of those problems? Because in many cases, it lies exactly in the secret of our ancestors or our past lives. And it's interesting that the moment you start to develop yourself and you start to cleanse yourself, automatically there will come up things which quite often are not even connected with our physical life experience or with our past life experience, but it will be connected even more with all of our with our ancestors. So how does it work and how does it happen? So first of all, the first level is the aspect of passing on the mindset and the philosophy of our ancestors, and including the traumas. So our parents and our grandparents, they lived and they were born in the 20th century, which means that in our family, almost by everyone, somebody participated at least in one war. It might be the First World War, it might be the Second World War, it might be a different one, but almost everyone's parents participated in a war. What does it mean? A war, it's usually a huge trauma. The war is usually such stress that the psyche cannot hold. A war, it's usually such hard experience, which the psychic and the consciousness doesn't want to look back. It doesn't want to remember. It doesn't want to analyze. It creates fear, it creates anger, it creates suppression. So for that reason, when you look especially on the elderly people, you can notice that the elder the generation is, usually the more, kind of hardcore they are.
Left, right, oh.
Yes, Joe, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
No problem, brother.
I was just, yeah, okay. I was training my dog in the meantime. Okay, I'm here. Sorry.
So, and it is interesting to say that, did you know that the term that we call a child, or for example, a teenager, that this is a term that actually only appeared in the 20th century? That before the 20th century, children were already working on the fields from the age of 4, 6, and 7. Then this later on, they kind of created the term as a child and said, no, you cannot use the child labor. And then they allowed them to become already grown-ups from the age of 11 and 12. So from the age then 11 and 12, they were already starting to work in the factories and etc. And as you know, in the past, there was a lot more higher death rate by the children. So as a result, at least 25% of all children died until the age of 10. So the aspect of giving love to the children was not spread out. Like this aspect of giving love to the children, it is mostly a thing from the 20th century. Of giving the child more time, more freedom, giving him the opportunity not to work. And from that moment on, the value of giving children love started to increase. Because before that, humans were used very strongly as slaves. Until today, humans are used as slaves, but back then it was really hardcore. And it's interesting to notice that the more love was given to the children, actually, the more developed they became when they got older. Because love helps to develop the brain better. Love helps the person to feel more confident. Love helps to be more healthy. Love creates a more stronger psyche for development, analysis, and eventually for creativity. A child that didn't get enough of love, he has always stronger problematic issues with his psychology, creativity, the aspect of his, let's say, sharing and reflection. And so eventually, imagine the 20th century, this is the moment that we started to give children more and more love and started to organize for them a more wider reality. So the wind is strongly blowing in the microphone. Okay, let's try like this. I'll put it to the other side. So is this better? Does the wind blow? Okay, great. So coming back. So as a result, from the 20th century, we started to develop such a term for the society as a child, teenager, and having and giving them more time and freedom for spending for themselves. If you actually ask me, we just started to put them in schools, and that's another type of a prison where they were just ideologically changed. But this doesn't change that at least children could spend more time not working in the fields or the factory. And so for that reason, the later we go, the more time and love we started to give value to give to the children. So now we came to a point that almost the majority of children are actually demanding love from their parents. And for all of the problems, they always blame the parents. They say, you didn't love me. You didn't give me the attention that I needed. And as a result, we have now quite many people who are blaming their parents for the reason that they didn't provide them that love, which in truth, they never had. this is the thing what I wanted to share with you. Our parents, and the more you go in the past, the less love they had. They didn't have love. They didn't have care. They were approached as adults almost from an early time. They were pushed and forward upon working and doing things which they didn't have an option to. And now we truly live in a time when we actually give value to love and to a child, and to the importance of this love and support to a child. So that's why we live in an interesting time, especially now the newer generation are so much blaming of their own problems upon the parents, and through that way putting the responsibility for their own life upon the parents and the system. But our parents and ancestors, as they were having a harder life, they had less free time. They were participating in wars. They have a huge amount of traumas, a huge amount. And they're so big, and that if we're right now sitting with all of you here in the course, and we have the opportunity now to transform this traumas and to transform ourselves, this knowledge didn't exist in the 20th century. Or in other words, there were really, really, really less people who went to psychiatry, knew how to work with their subpersonalities, know what it means a trauma, knew the understanding and the importance of loving yourself. And of that reason, we're truly one of such, you can say, new generations of souls who can finally take care of ourselves. Life is now so structured that we can organize for ourselves that free time and that opportunity just to do what we want. We never lived in such a comfortable reality as we do right now. We never lived in such a free world as we do right now, that you can simply just go get a ticket and fly to another country and meet any teacher. Or thanks to the internet, we can be sitting in different countries and we can still get the knowledge from different parts of the world, and through that, get the answers, which back then was impossible to get if you didn't travel there. But how could you travel if there were no planes? Like in the middle, you had to, the plane tickets really often costed a lot of money. Like to find a person who truly had knowledge and who could assist you well, you had to dedicate a lot of time to find them, to travel there, to talk with them, to communicate with them. So we truly live right now in a moment when we have the opportunity, that which our parents didn't have so much, and our grandparents didn't have at all, and our grandparents, they couldn't even imagine of such a life that we'll live right now, in the wildest imagination. So thanks to this, we have right now the opportunity to break the cycle of suffering. We have the opportunity of breaking the cycle of the traumas, of the slavery mindset, and the pain which our ancestors were living through, and they didn't know what to do with it. Just a small example. If anybody of the ancestors participated in a war, it takes 5 generations to heal the trauma from a war. That pain, that suffering, that suppression, it stays for 5 generations. So the next generation, it just gets 20% better. Then the second generation gets 20% more letting go. Third generation, 20 more. So it takes 5 generations. And it is possible, and what we're doing right now, it is possible to heal it in 1 generation. But you have to work upon it. You have to do the work. If you don't do the work, then in a natural flow, it takes 5 generations. So you can calculate that it will take like 2 centuries at least to heal from a trauma from a war. This is how destructive wars are for us as humanity. And this is why they're so destructive for our collective evolution, because all of the pain that feels, it doesn't matter which society or which nation, this pain gets stuck in our collective human form and consciousness. So if you kill, for example, Second World War, it didn't matter. Would you kill the Jews? Would you kill the Germans? Would you kill the Russians? It's killing of humanity, and we're humanity. the trauma remains in us. And that's why it will always reflect until we won't transform it. So may this information assist you to give deeper understanding, love, and support to your parents and to your ancestors. Don't feel angry for them. Just understand that they were living in a different time, an absolutely different reality with different rules, which were a lot more hardcore than we're living right now. So thanks to this, may this lower down the aspect if any of you is feeling angry upon the parents until today. And I'll share you a wisdom from the Veda books, which were written down over 6,000 years ago, where it's shared that if your parents gave you birth and left you on the street, you have to be grateful to them. You have to be loving them, that they gave you the greatest gift, life, the opportunity to be in this unbelievable game. The rest, it's a bonus. Everything on top is a bonus. It's not a must. So keep this in mind. Everything what your parents give you, they didn't have to give you. It was the aspect of their choice they were giving because they felt that they want to give and they want to give. And they could give only so much, how much they had inside, how much love and energy they had inside. It's impossible to give when you don't have it. And so now what we're doing, we're filling ourselves with love and support, and through our own love and support and wholeness, then we're capable of breaking the cycle and in truly sharing even more love and support to our children and close ones, and to all of our future ancestors. So this reason, understand how important is the work that you are right now doing. As you're right now doing the work that is bringing healing not only to you, but it's bringing to all of your family root tree. Like 5,000 years ago, there was such a thing that they always were sending at least one person from the family on the spiritual path. They would have 10, 15 children, and they would 100% send one person on the spiritual path. Spiritual, which means they would send him to a temple or to a monastery, but they would see who from the children has a more bigger interest to that. One will be sent, because it was a hope that this one, if he truly will spiritually fulfill himself, this will create freedom for the whole family. Because if at least one family member reaches enlightenment and healing, it creates healing for 7 generations before and 7 generations after. I'll repeat, if somebody really reaches enlightenment and total healing, it brings healing and transformation to 7 generations before and 7 generations after. This is how powerful is your transformation. This is how powerful is your healing. And this is why you need to treat yourself with love and support in this work. It's really complex work. Very few who can do it until the end, because the mind will find 1,000 reasons not to look into the pain, and not to write your diary today, not to do your morning routine, not to analyze the hard moments, but rather be the same. So for that reason, know that you right now are on the most important path of your spiritual fulfillment that you can do for yourself and for all of your ancestors. So at the same time, a little bit now to be practical, how do the ancestors impact us? So when we're small and we don't know yet how life works, we take in like a sponge, everything what our parents are having inside of their structure. So if they have pain, if they have conflicts, if they hate themselves, so try to guess what we take in. And now, as you understood through my story, that the further you go to the past, well, the more painful they live. Like the life which was 6,000 years ago, that was beautiful. The life of the last 3, 4, and even 500 years of humanity, it's total slavery, total abusement, huge amount of wars, huge amount of suffering. People were just eating to get each other like parasites because their leaders were using humans as a parasite, abusing them in all forms and ways. Why this happened, it's a different story. But this is what happened. And we're right now dealing with the waves that it created back then and with the results of those events. So how does this pain can be, for example, pushed through? Now, let's say like a mother, she's having a communication with her daughter. The mother had one of the traumas which was like passed on through generations, or which eventually created a story in her life where she stopped trusting men. So what does the mother tell to the girl? She will say, don't trust men, only trust yourself. You can rely only on yourself. Remember that, darling. And as a result, what does it create? It creates inside of the girl the attitude that all men are sick, all men are evil, that you cannot trust men, you have to trust yourself. And as a result, it breaks the totally the structure of truly a healthy woman in understanding what it means to be a woman. And she doesn't allow the man to be the man because her mother was broken, because her grandmother or grandmother had some kind of a story, and through that she didn't work through this trauma. It is passed on by generation and generation and generation. And this woman, she grows up, she has bad relationship with men. Why? Because she attracts broken men, because she looks on men as if they're broken. And if the woman looks on reality that all men are broken, try to guess which men she will attract in her life. Simple. So this is how the traumas work. It starts with the mindset. And if we don't notice those traumas which were passed on through generation to generation, even in the philosophical mind understanding of life, we will continue to live their mistakes, their problems, their pain, and repeat the patterns over and over and over again. And if this was in the family root for 3, 4 generations, well, you can understand why it's so hard to change sometimes the patterns which are stuck in the family root tree. So of that reason, you can now understand why you have to treat yourself with full love and support, because you're doing something what is really hard. You're transforming a pattern which is in your DNA and a pattern which is in your brain, like from both sides. And that's why, of course, the mind will fight against your new life view. That's why the mind will fight against your own happiness. And that's why the mind will fight against the new concept, which allows you to live in lightness, happiness, and love. One thing is to say it, but the other thing is to become what we speak about. As becoming it, we have to change the neurons in our head. Through the neurons, we'll change the patterns of our biochemistry in the body. And through the biochemistry, then we'll change the biological structure of our DNA, and then fully changes this old program. And this takes time. This takes patience. This takes a lot of work, analyzation, and a lot of energy. So I'll share with you an interesting thing. So when a person lived for a long time in suffering, in anger, in pain, his biology, it has changed. And the biology of the body, it has a feeling that is getting the energy only when there are problems. So you know that there are people who feel alive only when they have like shit in their lives, and they have problems, and they have stress, and somebody shouts at them, and there's something happening bad. That's when majority of people are alive. Why? Because their biology, their body became addicted in a real way, like biologically addiction to adrenaline and to specific biochemistry, which is developed when we feel negative, when we fear, when we feel angry. As a result, when this person grew up in a stressful environment, in a family which had a lot of pain and shouting and etc., then when he grows up, if everything starts to become good and peaceful, the person cannot even be happy because his biology is broken. And the person subconsciously will try to create for himself or herself problems, pain, complicateness, because only through feeling this pain and anger, they will get this feeling, I'm alive. That's the only moment when their body is actually giving them the energy to feel their presence. Why? Because the body always adapts to the reality that we're living. If you were living for a long time in stress, pain, and suffering, just know that this is a typical algorithm how the body works. It gets its energy through biochemistry, which is developed in stress, anger, and suffering. To change this biochemistry, well, it takes at least 3 months. At least 3 months. You need to love yourself, support yourself, not allow yourself to self-criticize, not allow for other things to push you down, but to keep yourself wholeness. Then your biochemistry changes and you will start to feel energized when you're happy. And you will start to feel that happiness for you, it's normal. That's your normal state of consciousness. But for that, you need to give the time, because this physical body, it needs time to change its biochemistry. So that's why so many people, even though they say, I want a good life, I want to love, I want peace, and etc., they don't have the patience, the focus, the practice of going until the end. And this is the reason why together with you, we're making the diary and we're implementing habits which would assist you to go until the end of your transformation. And while you're on this path, this is why there will be moments when there will be a desire of something happening in life that will try to shake you on this path. Because it's the old algorithms of the mind, because it's the memory of the DNA of the ancestors, which often is speaking through us. So I hope now you have a new part of the puzzle in understanding that you need 3 months of time to allow your body to change your biochemistry. So you would get your energy from happiness, and that your body would stop being addicted to the biochemistry which is developed through problems, stress, and anger. So this is why it is so important to give ourselves love and support. If your mind cannot give you the love and support, you go to meditation to your higher self. Your soul can give you all of the love and the support which your brain cannot give you. Your soul can give you the love and the support that your parents cannot give you. Your soul can give you all of the love and the support that the society and everybody around you cannot give you. This is how powerful you are. Use this power. Don't allow yourself to be abused like our ancestors were abused. Don't think about whose fault it is that I feel this way. Focus on changing it. Focus your mind on transforming it. Focus on giving yourself that love that you won't have any more debates inside of yourself whose fault it is. Fill the gap of pain with love, and with the love, the rest will change magically. So, another aspect of ancestors. So, there's such an aspect as ancestor traumas, and it can be reflected sometimes really easily. Where in my life, I had these moments when we're communicating, for example, with my wife, and then at a certain point, everything is good, but we're having a conversation, and one of the sudden, from inside of me, comes such a strange feeling. I start to speak, and I see that these words I never even used before. That it's not my style even of putting the sentences together. I just see that, and we're starting to have a conflict. And then eventually, when I become present and we both analyze, I understand that this is not my subpersonality. I understand that this is not something what even comes from my biological experience. And then I look in and I see that it's actually one of my ancestors, like for example, 5 generations back, that there was a guy who didn't have a family. He was excluded from the family root tree, who had bad experience with women, who had a trauma towards women, and who tries to speak through me and to put his trauma upon my lovely. Our DNA, it is connected with our ancestors. So through our DNA can activate this ancestor traumas automatically when the situation is comfortable for that. And if we don't notice it, we can be easily carried away, and a very big conflict can develop when in truth, nobody wants it. But it's as if we don't have the control at this moment over us. So when this happens, it's really important to notice it. And it's really, really good to go into meditation. Because through meditation, you can again transform it. You can change it. This is also a reflection of a family root trauma. So once you start to heal yourself, you have to know that your ancestors, everyone who weren't healed and who had traumas, they will come and speak through you. This is how interesting it is. And that's why this is how exactly this healing happens. This is why so few people actually heal, because nobody, very few people understand what actually happens inside of the head. That the experience of our consciousness, it's first our biological experience. Second, it's our perinatal experience. So perinatal is the experience in the womb. And the third is the ancestor experience of all of our ancestors, which is reflected through the DNA of the biological body that we're right now present. And this is why you now can understand why sometimes this healing work that you do upon yourself becomes hard. Because what has gathered your ancestors and what has gathered your soul in the past lives, perinatal, and this experience, well, it's very, very individual. So for that reason, again, I'll underline, give yourself love and support. That's the only way how you can handle it. Only if you love yourself, only if you support yourself, only if you stop criticizing yourself when something doesn't work. Be grateful for every action that you did. Be grateful for all of the experience that you lived through. And especially for the hard experience, the most painful one. Fully support yourself in this process, because it's an aspect which only you can transform through love, because love was that thing, that important puzzle which was lacking by the ancestors. But now you can fill the gap of this love through your own structure. You heal your structure, you heal everyone who are connected with you. And if you don't have the love in the mind or in life, give the love from your higher self. And this is how you can be your own savior. You can be your own healer. You can be your own magician in the transformation. So, also, now let's speak of an interesting aspect of, let's say, how to take care and which habits we can implement to assist ourselves and our future generations in their lives. So I come from Estonia. In Estonia, the main capital is Tallinn. Tallinn is one of the most ancient cities that ever existed in Europe, as it's over 1,000 years old. It was used in the Viking times to trade with Russia and the Arabs. So Tallinn had a non-freezing harbor. So as a result, this harbor and this place was the most crucial geopolitical point at that time for trading. So if you wanted to trade between Europe and Russia, or between Europe and the Arabs, you had to control Tallinn. So as a result, a very special city was formed, which stands until today. It's over 1,000 years old, and it has a very, very, very rich history, starting from Vikings, going to Denmark, Danish, then Swedes, then Germans, then Russian Tsar. So all of these cultures were there present. And inside of the city, there are two cities. Like the city is really small. It's like 700 meters long and 450 meters wide. So it's actually a very small city. But in the city, we have two different cities with two different parliaments, with different laws, lower city and upper city. And you know what was the main difference between these cities? That in the lower city were mostly living merchants, craftsmen, and let's say former slaves. And in the upper city were living the nobility. So what is so special and what is so different between nobility and the merchants? Why a very rich merchant cannot become nobility? What was that core difference? And the core difference lies in the history, because majority of the traders who became rich, well, if to speak in our modern time, back then, you really had to be like a burglar. You had to be really hardcore to be a trader. It's like being a gangster. And so eventually, many of the traders who sailed and made the money, they actually didn't have any culture. Their families didn't have anything special behind them. Many of them were self-made. And that's why if they spoke with people who were just focusing on money, they could understand each other. But what was different by the nobles the nobles, they always had a history of which they saved, and they passed it on from generation to generation, from generation to generation. So modern times, people know their family, well, mostly 4, 5. It's already rare when people know 6 generations back. It's already considered to be rare. But by noble people, they would know their roots up to 20, 30 generations back. So, for example, in Tallinn, we have in the old city until today a house from a family which we know, like the public knows. We know their family history for over 1,000 years. Imagine, 1,000 years. They were saving all of their stories and passing on from one generation to another. So as a result, in this family, he has some of the best in history: merchants, doctors, travelers, diplomats, kings, queens, even pirates. The diversity of this family and their success, it is just tremendous. It is unimaginable for any common person. So how did they achieve such greatness? In a very simple way. When the child was born in this family, he was listening to the stories and reading the books that the ancestors wrote down about their lives. When the child reads a story that my grandfather was a Viking king or a Conrad, then he understands he can become a ruler. Then he reads this one was a doctor, or this one was a king or a queen, or this was a trader, or this was the child. If he hears that in my family I had this, then he knows I can repeat it, or I can even do better. But when in the family nobody tells him that somebody did it from his ancestors, it doesn't exist in his reality. You know, it just doesn't exist. He doesn't even think about it. So now, luckily, to films, books, even computer games, children are getting more dreams. They start to believe in themselves a lot wider, because it provides stories which they can take in and they can decide for themselves what they become. Even 100 years ago, that was not possible. If your family wasn't respecting themselves and they weren't keeping track of their family roots, to become successful was almost impossible. To become rich was almost impossible. And for many generations, that's why people were farmers and they couldn't do nothing except farming, because they didn't have information and understanding in their head that they could be anybody else. So actually, right now, what you're doing with your diary, and my congratulations with that, you're now are starting to write down your family history, starting from yourself. You're right now are writing down those things and that material, which later on you can transform into your own book of the wisdoms of your family. So that all of the future generations, when they will ask, well, what was the life in the 20th, 21st century? It's like, oh, you know, our grandma, grandpa, they were leading a diary. They were living in such an unbelievable time. Like, they were thinking that only humans exist and they live on planet and there are actually no more civilizations. And they're, you know, they were living 60, 70 years and they were dying and they had sicknesses. Can you believe that? It's like, no way. That sounds like hell. It's like, yeah, they were in slavery. It's like, man, how it means to be enslaved. So, my darlings, do you understand how deep and important the work that you're doing now for all the future that comes? What now we don't see in the future, you will be so grateful that you wrote down your path of development, your path of discovery, and your path of transformation. It's crucial for the success not only of your family, but us as humanity as a whole. The success of one is the success of all. The healing of one person is the healing of the whole humanity. The wisdom of one, it's a wisdom that can use all humanity. This is how important is the work that you do. And this is why so strong your mind is being manipulated, that you would stop and return back to that typical life as majority of people live. So may this be an extra information and inspiration of the understanding how important is the work that you do and why it is at certain point so complex and so stressful from the inside. Because so all of the past memory and all of the programs inside of our head are fighting against the new programs, reality that you're creating right now for yourself. So now just give yourself even more love and support in this path that you have chosen to follow. Because this is the only way how you can get a new reality. This is the only way how you can truly get happiness. And it's the only way how you can help and also save your ancestors in the past and all of your children and grandchildren in the future. Give to yourself respect for the work that you're right now doing, as it's truly remarkable, it's truly matters, and it's truly is life-changing on all of the levels. Oh, sure. Oh, I see Pamela is joining us. Oh, thank you very much, Amir. I'll afterwards read all of your questions and all of the remarks. Yeah. Welcome to us, Pamela. Mm-hmm. Well, so, my dear friends, topic of the ancestors, it's quite a wide topic, but you have now even a more deeper understanding how all is interconnected and how you are connected with the past and how you are connected with all of the future. Now we'll just go to the aspect of more questions and answers. So you can ask me those topics which you would like to discover and to discuss about your family or those things which matter to you. So I'll right now open the chat and just go step by step from the top down. So how long to heal the trauma of the pandemic? Well, that's a very good question. All I can say that for somebody, it's a trauma. For somebody, it's a blessing. For example, for me, myself, it was a blessing because I could finally dissociate myself from all of the, let's say, games that the society was playing. So, and I cannot call it as a trauma because during this time, people were just sitting home. A trauma is when somebody has to kill each other. That already creates a trauma. When you see somebody physically suffering, dying, acting like an animal, this is what makes trauma inside of our head. But during this pandemic time, when people were just sitting at home, they were just maybe acting nasty or not trusting each other. But it wasn't something what, for example, we did during the Second World War. And what we did during the Second World War, just a small reflection, so you would understand how traumatic that was. So do you know how many people died during the Second World War? Can somebody give me numbers? So you see, all of us are sitting here, all so smart, yeah, so educated, so wise. And I will right now tell you, and so you would understand how we're being manipulated and why society is under control as slaves. Because this fact should know every human being living on this planet. Because in the Second World War died more people than in all of the world history wars combined. You take all wars in all our human history that we know, we combine them together, and the amount of deaths is less than in the Second World War. And you don't know the number, even though that our ancestors died in this war. The amount of people that died in this war, it's over 60 million people. Up to 72 million people died just 50 years ago. Okay, already 70 years ago. And we don't know that. Why? Well, because we're educated as slaves. If people would know this fact, they would have a more serious approach towards this topic, and they would find out a lot of important information. But nobody shares it because everybody would understand how come humanity is acting like animals. Because during the Second World War, we were pushed to kill each other like animals. And so many people died that this trauma remains, of course, until now. So compare it to that, and now what happened, it's uncomparable. Right now, even though that this pandemic was kind of bad, but it's children games in the kindergarten compared to that what was happening 70 years ago. And I'm happy that we don't have any more such wars where we create such strong traumas, that we create such strong traumas as we did in the past. So I'll go for the next question. So adopted children have the double amount of dramas and etc. Absolutely correct. Like the kids who have been adopted, they have like a double kind of work. Because on one they have their biological past. Second, they have a trauma that in childhood didn't get enough of love. And then on top of that, they have a trauma which will be still pushed through the mindset of the family, and including those traumas which is in the new family. So that's why children who grew up in orphanages and were adopted, they have a really, really hard time in recovering, because they really need to do work upon themselves. But if they heal, they truly become like superhumans. They can deal with a lot of stress. They can be very talented. They can be very persistent, and they can achieve really great things. But for that, they need to do a huge amount of work upon themselves. And for example, a child which was born in a family which knows the history of the ancestors, which is successful, which has covered their financial questions, which has enough of love, this child will always reach the percentage. Likewise, like by them, the majority of them will reach success and fulfillment. So, of course, there are exceptions in both ways, but just know, children that got more love, more energy, more support in their childhood, they carry it inside of their lives, and then it's a lot easier for them to attract healthy, wise, strong, successful people. And kids who had a lot of traumas, a lot of pain, a lot of that, they will attract mostly problems, sick people, dramas, and etc. And nobody explains them that actually to deal with these questions, they have to focus on themselves. Because majority of people, they focus not on themselves, they focus on the outer world to prove others how good they are, or that they have to be famous, or they have to be rich, and etc. So it's a broken cycle in understanding what to do, so truly to transform it. And it's all about focusing on ourselves and to give ourselves the love and the support. So the next one. Hey all, Vadim, I disassociate from the teachings. I just leave the practice self-love. I go through the videos when it's time for me and need it. Until then, I go. Enjoy me and life. Enjoy the teachings. Thank you all. See you all in another call. Love and light to all of you. Oh, thank you very much, Dominic. And this is a very adult and cool way that if you feel that this is right now a topic too sensitive and it really like rises up tension and sub personalities, which then it's truly right now, don't push yourself. Literally just go in a smooth way of transformation. Like my sincere wish that for all of us that we would move truly in our transformation in a smooth way. We had enough of stress, we had enough of roughness in our lives, and especially in the past lives of our ancestors. Let's move in that tempo how we feel is the most comfortable for us. So always do what you feel. So thank you, Dominic, for doing what you feel is the most right for you right now. That's awesome, brother. Thank you, and much love to you too. What is if one doesn't have children? What is if one doesn't really know the real grandmother? My mom wasn't really allowed to talk about what happened to her family history. She comes from Puerto Rico. So I'll go for the first one. What is if one doesn't have children? Well, it's totally fine. If one doesn't have children, well, then the soul doesn't want right now to have children because, you know, this usually means that the soul knows that it has to focus on itself. Because people who don't want children, it's usually when they know what they need to achieve in this life for themselves. Because every child, it's an individual soul. So once we get children, in truth, we're allowing to enter our space another individual soul, which has its own path. And eventually we have to take care of it if we're responsible and loving parents. And it will take a lot of energy. It will take a lot of time. And so not everyone comes here to take care of others. Some of us came here to truly solve our own issues. So if you want children, that's beautiful. If you don't have children, that's also beautiful. Just feel who you are. Feel what your soul needs to receive through this life experience. What are those aspects what truly matter? So, in other words, just be yourself. And remember that in the big picture, there's no unique one way of flow. There's just your unique life flow. You need to understand your uniqueness. You need to be with yourself honest and just to do what your soul wants to do. And I'm absolutely against how the governments are pushing sometimes people to make children only so that they would have more soldiers and more workforce. It all has to be in a natural way. So eventually, in my opinion, all children that exist in the world, these are our children. This is our human children. And it doesn't matter from which parents eventually they come from. It's just our children as humanity. This is the way how I look on it. I treat with respect and love any child that comes in my way. And at the same time, I'm very honest with them. And I can speak with them like with adults. But sometimes parents just look at me, it's like, you're speaking with them more serious than you're speaking with us. It's like, can you say that to children? And the children, they understand it because their soul understands everything. So quite often I treat with respect and love, and at the same time, I treat them very often as individual souls and not like children. I see the soul inside of the child and not the child who's just maybe playing a child. So it's all up to what we see in the person. What we see in him, that is what is being shown even more. So the next one, what is if one doesn't really know the real grandmother? My mom wasn't really allowed to talk about what happens to her family history. She pours from Puerto Rico. Well, I can tell you for sure, Aleki, that you're not the only one who had some problems with the history of the family. As I shared with you, for example, now about the Second World War, where more than like 70 million people died. During this period, especially around the Second World War, there were so many like secret stories happening in families. It was so important to hide certain things from family members for the protection of the children, for the protection of the future generation. And many things were kept as a secret by our elder generation because they loved us and they didn't want like to put us in danger. I'll give an example from my family. So in my family, my grandfather played for me the role of a father because my parents got divorced when I was small, and mostly I spent time with my grandparents. So my grandfather was more for me as a father than my original biological father. And so eventually, his history, he died this year in February 13th. And his history it still remains a mystery for us. Because on one hand, we know he was like born in, I think officially he was born in 1933, but we know that he was born in 1931. Like he was born in Poland, then Poland got conquered by the Soviet Union. He became Belarusia. When he was small, they were living as Catholics and they were speaking Polish, but then in the Soviet Union, there was no religion. So, and no Polish, so he started to speak Russian. So, and eventually he couldn't follow his religion. Then, so to get into university or army, they had to switch his documents and make him older. So there were many different things, which, no, we didn't know. Just pieces by piece, afterwards, we started to put down the picture. So, and only after the fall of the Soviet Union, like around 2000, on a birthday of my small sister, he was really drunk, or he drank a little vodka, and he finally shared that actually, in truth, he has like, he had 4 sisters. 2 of them traveled away just before the war to US, and 2 of them stayed. And eventually, they had to hide this information. So our family during the Soviet Union time wouldn't get problems from the KGB. Because if you had any relatives living abroad, this made your family like a red cross was put in. You would never be allowed to work on specific ranks, have specific jobs, you will be always looked upon something what has to be like approached carefully with. And especially if you had any relatives in US. Imagine Cold War and you have relatives in US. That's it. So as a result, for the safety of the family, he never shared to anyone this information. Was it easy for him? No, of course not. Imagine to live with this all of your life, never having the opportunity to share something what created pain for you in your childhood. But he did it for the love and for the sake of the family. So many of our parents and grandparents had similar unbelievable stories, which we don't know. And it's the reflection of exactly what means a war and what is a really hardcore reality in which we can be placed in which people adapt so strong and become so strong inside that they're willing to lie all of their lives and never to say the truth for the sake and the safety of their loved ones. So, Adiki, in the same way, what is the story of your family and what they lived through and what was there? This is something what we can say the secret and the mystery of your family. But one thing what you can know for sure, that through the DNA that you carry in your body, your ancestors continue to speak, to talk, to share, and to live through you on. And by taking care of yourself, you will truly will create that what is important, that what all of our ancestors wanted, is to have a beautiful, happy life for our children, grandchildren, and everybody who comes on in the future. So just know that even by being on this course and working with Amanita, sincerely, you already are doing that important thing for which in your family might have been created such even secrets or things that we don't know. The most important thing is that you're alive, you're enjoying this physical world, and that you have the opportunity just to create everything that you want to. And that by healing yourself and taking care of your own happiness, you will automatically take care of everyone who is close to you, living or already dead. Because the connection, it always remains. On a high level, all of the energies are always connected. So I hope that this helps and helped a little bit to understand this topic deeper. So the next question, what is when the father died with 2 years and don't remember, but the father that adopted me, brave, is kissed so much love. Gave me. So if your biological father died in an early age and you got the love from another father and who loved you, well, that's a blessing. Because as I told you, in my opinion, the true father and the true mother, it's not the biological mother and father, but the ones who literally took care of you and filled you with love. So the ones who sincerely carry the responsibility for your life and who have truly shared their love with you, those are the true mother and father in your reality. Because they're the ones who have filled you with man and woman energy, which is reflected through your avatar until today. So the biological mother and father is just a part, but a lot more bigger, important part is that what you lived through in this life? Is that what you received in this life form? This has an impact like on 80% on who you are. And the 20% is the past. Just once you're starting to work upon yourself and to heal yourself, that from the past will come automatically into the work through that you're living through right now. Many people don't even notice and don't even understand when the trauma comes from the ancestors, because majority of people are not working at all on themselves. So just be grateful to your true father and mother that filled you with love, care, and that they helped you to open up your best and wonderful potential, which you carry inside of your avatar and your soul. So the next one, could there have been other reasons for secret lies other than World War II? Of course, like just remember that the World War, why it was II was so important, because it just created so much stress for everybody around the world, and from the stress created many other problems by many families and many cultures around the world. And of course, the problems can come from different sources. Just the stress which we lived through during the Second World War, it left such a strong impact of a trauma in our collective human form that which type, let's say, so imagine, during this period, there was created a lot of stress and pressure. This pressure came into our human form as humanity, and then later on, nobody healed it. So as a result, later on, what we can see, for example, through especially art, like media, films, even computer games later on, after the Second World War, we have such a huge amount of violent films, such a huge amount of violent games. Everybody loves shooting, killing, yeah? Everybody likes horror films. So this is a reflection that this is what is stuck in our collective human form, which is then later on like pushed out by different types of art form. And includingly, this was pushed out by different situations that different families around the world lived through. Because we're all connected and interconnected through one energy field, as we're eventually one consciousness. And what is the story in your family? Well, this is for you to discover. But asking questions and listening to the parents, it usually gives like many answers. Because eventually they want to share. And once they feel ready, they usually share. And if they don't share, well, then for now, it's not important, because you will eventually will find out one or the other way through your own transformation, because it will be played out through you. In other words, that what was suppressed in the past, it will eventually might come out through our own structure of self-healing. So if there's no clarity about the details, then there's no meaning to know the details. Most important is to transform the pain. Most important that you will be happy. Most important that you would find ways of, let's say, forgiving and letting go the feeling of, let's say, of badness towards any of the parents or grandparents or to any complex situations. Because we have chosen very, very, very consciously with our souls that family, that country, that place where we have been born. It was done like fully conscious so that we could open our true natural path of fulfillment or discovery of life. exactly by living through that childhood experience which we lived through our families. And if you had quite a rough and a hardcore childhood experience, well, this means that your soul came here for some strong and big discoveries and changes. Because usually the harder the childhood, well, the more greater is the path of the soul. As any, let's say, stress, pain, and complicatedness, it can be approached as a negative point, or it can be approached as a gift of getting an experience which will make you stronger, which will make you understand yourself deeper, which will help you to develop those qualities, those skills, that persistence, which other kids can never develop because they never went through those problems that we did. And in approaching in such a way, it truly becomes a lot more easier to understand why we have chosen or what we went through this or that complex life experience, especially in childhood. And also remember that there's also the past lives. So after we die, there's an analysis of all of the life and the lessons that the person understood or he didn't understood, that the person lived through and that the soul has avoided. Then it's taken into one good analysis and then very exactly is chosen the next reincarnation. So it's like a theatrical performance, which especially is done for getting that life experience and knowledge, which can liberate us from, let's say, this physical world. And to get that wisdom so that our soul would become whole. Or in other words, that our soul would go through its natural spiritual evolution. So I hope this gives a deeper insight, Pamela. Good. Cool. Well, my darlings, are there any more questions that you would like to discover today? Well, is lottery numbers an option? Well, Gunther, that's a good question connected with ancestors. Well, all I can say that on a high level, coincidences never exist. All I can say, coincidences never exist. And there's even you can like Google stories of people who are very lucky. And you'll see that there are people who are always lucky and who had such luck that it's unimaginable that luck exists. And on the opposite, there were such unlucky people that you can also look and see that it's impossible to be so unlucky. Eventually, when you study both of these topics, you find out that there's just a higher form of a game which the mind shouldn't understand. And that there should still be a magic of the unknowing, what we call coincidence. As if you would remember all the things that you shared and all the things that you asked for, then you would truly see that in your life, there's no coincidence. Coincidence, it's a word for people. So to not to carry responsibility for their lives. I'll repeat, the word coincidence is just not a mature level of soul in taking the responsibility for its reality. Eventually, everything is just a choice. And every coincidence is just a reflection of something, what we have chosen or said or done in the past. once you remember that all is connected, coincidences disappear. Okay? So you're ready now for the home task for this week. So the home task will be, I ask of you to put on paper for yourself your own family root tree. I'll repeat. I ask you to put on paper for yourself your own family root tree. Try to write down their names and their surnames, when they lived, and at least some aspects of their lives, who they were and what were their characters. Best of all, if you can write down their strong points and their traumas. If you can mark down and to see for yourself the picture of your ancestors, of your grandparents, parents, and you will just see what were their talents and what were their strong points, but at the same time, their traumas. You will start to see everything clear. You will start to see the algorithms and the programs which were pushed on includingly upon you. Yeah, uncle, aunt as well. Just put down everyone who you have, because they're all connected with your biology. And quite often, aunt and uncle can live through certain scenarios which maybe you're living through, or somebody did in the past. So it's just interesting for you to see how it's connected. And to see how it's connected, it's really good to know about the things which they have achieved and which qualities they have developed and skills. But also, what were their weak points? What were their traumas? What was their pain? And when you will see that, well, I think you will share with me and us your interesting discoveries by yourself. But be now the one who will finally put together the family root tree, so that for the future, all of your kids and future generations would have it. Do it now in a simple way. And if you're inspired, you can then afterwards go into a deeper level of this analysis. But I want you to see how interconnected you are with all of your family. So this is the task for this week. We continue to write the diary. We continue to do our morning routine. We continue to make conclusions and to ask questions to Amanita. Just on the side, now we just make an analysis and a map of our family. Sounds good? Good. So answering your questions, with everyone included, blood relations and non-blood, of course, because as I told you, people who are not connected with us by blood, but they're connected by energy, which means energy that they have put in their energy inside of our structure. They have put in their time and their love inside of us. They have the same impact on our lives as our blood ancestors. Imagine that a child is a sponge. He takes in the vibration of the person who is close to him. So that person who is close to him shares the vibration that he carries inside of him. And it goes as for positive and as for traumas and negative.
Yeah, there's a lot to do in that case with my family history.
Well,
yeah, a lot of different people. Good, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll have there, Aleki, for sure, many things to discover, because it seems your family had different interesting secrets and stories in the past. So for sure, there will be something very cool to discover there.
Various grandmothers and grandfathers and various fathers. Yeah, okay. Interesting.
Well, my dear ones, I think today was quite a deep topic. Did you like it?
Yes.
Mhm. Well, beautiful, beautiful. Well, may this knowledge give you new, let's say, food for thinking, analyzation of yourself, of your life, and this discovery of who you truly are and how strongly you're connected with everyone. We're all one, we're all interconnected. And first of all, with our families and our ancestors. So make your analysis, make your conclusions, as only the conclusions will help you and everyone to move on. Okay, darlings. Thank you very much for joining today. See you on Wednesday, and namaste. I worship
Namaste.
the
Namaste.
God within you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great Sunday.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Bye.
Bye.
Beautiful. Goodbye.
Bye.
See you, darlings.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Henrik, war der auch schon mal dazu?